This episode is the third in our series where we'll be showing you how to run the 100 meters from start to finish, with this episode detailing how to execute the 40 to 60 meter segment of the race. In the last episode detailing the 20 to 40 meter segment, I spoke about how the athlete should have exited their drive phase and transitioned into fully upright running with their final leg cycle motion that they'll maintain for the rest of the race locked in by the time they hit the 40 meter mark. Because 60 meters is around the point where a lot of athletes reach their top speed, when we analyse races, it's often done through separating the first 60 meters and the final 40 meters into individual splits, as the first 60 indicates the acceleration phase of the race, while the final 40 indicates ability to hold top end speed. With most elite sprinters hitting their top speed around 60 meters and beyond, the 40 to 60 meter segment is a zone where some athletes have the potential to hit their fastest 20 meter split of the race, while others will hit their fastest 20 meter split from 60 to 80 meters. Some athletes who hit their fastest split between 40 to 60 meters were Ben Johnson and Donovan Bailey, who both split 1.67 in their Olympic final victories and world record runs. They also split the exact same time of 1.69 from 60 to 80 meters, making it 0.02 seconds slower than the segment prior. Another athlete to hit their fastest split in the middle segment of the race was Asafa Powell, who split a time of 1.68 in his world record race in Zurich in 2006, with the following segment from 60 to 80 meters being 1.69. So with 40 to 60 meters being the segment of the race where an athlete is running fully upright throughout, but is also still accelerating, how should they execute this part of the race? One of the primary things an athlete needs to focus on is eliminating any mistakes that can occur during this phase of the race, and overexertion can be detrimental to maintaining form and speed as the race progresses. Once an athlete has made the switch to upright running and is looking straight down the track, they may get an urge to empty the tank right away in an attempt to improve their position in the race, but not being over-responsive to the athletes around you and sticking to your own race pattern is the best option. This can be easier said than done, since even at the elite level we see athletes tense up between 40 to 60 meters when an opponent is on their shoulder, even if they ran a smooth and perfectly executed race just an hour beforehand when they were under less pressure. An example of an athlete starting to tense up between 40 to 60 meters was in the 2007 World Champs final, where Asafa Powell was leading Tyson Gay by 0.02 of a second at the 40 meter mark. When both athletes reached the 60 meter mark, Powell was still 0.02 of a second ahead, meaning they had the exact same 40 to 60 split of 1.71, but given Powell's race strategy and typical dominance within the first 60 meters, he would have hoped to have created a bigger lead by that point. You can see Powell's form beginning to tense from 40 to 60 meters, and while it doesn't directly hurt him in that segment of the race, since he doesn't lose any ground, it does hurt him as the race progresses, since his 60 to 80 meter time was notably slower, with a split of 1.74 seconds compared to Tyson's 1.69 seconds. Both athletes hit a highest top speed between 40 to 60 meters of 11.79, with Tyson Gay's top speed between 60 to 80 meters being 11.83, while Powell's top speed from 60 to 80 was 11.51, showing the dramatic difference in direction of the athlete's momentum once they passed the midsection of the race. Powell's top speed in the race was reached between 50 to 60 meters, which isn't too uncommon, and it goes to show that you can continue accelerating up to 60 meters with the help of the speed you've already built up, even if you push so hard that it hinders your technique execution. This shows us the importance of staying patient and not trying to run the race all out to the 60 meter line in a 100 meter sprint. In the 2024 Olympic final in Paris, Kashane Thompson looked to be straining from as early as 50 meters, which was something we hadn't previously seen from him that season, as he appeared to be exerting full effort to hold off the challenge of Fred Kerley in the lane next to him. While this effort was enough to hold off Kerley, it left many thinking that it prevented him from running to his full potential, since he ran a relaxed 980 in the semi and also ran a time of 9.77 a few weeks prior. One athlete in that race who did remain patient was Noah Lyles, who went from being in last place at 40 meters to third place at 60 meters, and eventually he overtook Thompson after 90 meters, despite Thompson leading the race all the way from 30 meters to that point. Some may assume that Lyle's going from 8th in the race at 40 meters to 3rd in the race at 60 meters meant he really had to fully exert himself during that segment, but it was actually a case of his gradual acceleration all the way from the start of the race paying dividends later on. He was still only in 7th place at the 50 meter mark, but he managed to overtake 4 of his competitors in the space of 10 meters, which was a result of patience from the start of the race, and not just a case of an incredible burst of sprinting over 10 meters. A great example of an athlete showing extreme patience in their acceleration was Marcel Jacobs in the 100 meter final at the Tokyo Olympics, where it was recorded that he didn't hit his top speed until the 85 meter mark. Staying composed in the middle segment of the race contributed to this, and this composure even shone through in his World Indoors win the following season, as he overtook both Bromell and Coleman between 40 to 60 meters in the 60 meter event. There is a difference between how a race should be executed if you're trying to win in the 60 meter event and trying to win a 100 meter race, since it can be beneficial to get into upright running sooner in the 60 meters, so I don't recommend you apply the information being taught in this video if your goal is specifically to win 60 meter races. Although having said this, Jacob seemed to keep his outdoor race pattern and apply it to the indoor 60 to get sharp on his starts early that season, and he still came out on top against athletes regarded as the most gifted starters in the world. Even though I'm promoting staying patient when it comes to effort execution, while you're still accelerating, you haven't yet reached the point of switching to full relaxation mode, where you lay off slightly on effort as you just want to maintain speed. This point will come after 60 meters for the majority of athletes who have optimal race execution, and it will be covered in my next video. One question that sprinters might ask is, should your form change at all between 40 to 60 meters? And I would say that this depends on how much of your race you've been running fully upright for. If you began full upright running at 30 meters, then your form shouldn't have any reason to change between 40 to 60 meters. However, if you only began full upright running at the 38 meter mark, for example, you may not yet have gotten your leg cycle and arm movements into the ranges of motion you want them to be in by 40 meters. This means your arm swing may be going too far forward, or your knees may be coming up lower than you want them to be for the remainder of the race, so in this case you may still have some adjustments to make to find your form after the 40 meter mark. Another topic that sprinters ask about is ankle dorsiflexion. When athletes have entered upright running, they're in a position to perform ankle dorsiflexion, but due to the contrasting findings on whether or not it's beneficial to actively trigger dorsiflexion, I don't suggest that it's something all athletes should aim to do. Having already established what actions to avoid during the middle segment of the race, what actions need to be taken to maximize sprinting execution during this segment. When an athlete lifts their head up to look straight down the track, they may find that they were running somewhat off-centre during their drive phase, so finding their position in the centre of the lane while trying to cut out sideways movements can marginally reduce their finishing time and also stop them from getting too close to an athlete in the next lane where someone could get impeded by a swinging arm. An athlete's torso angle once they're in upright running is also something that needs to be considered. Usain Bolt is an example of an athlete who ran with a slight forward lean in his torso, as he said that keeping your chest in front of your centre of mass allows gravity to pull you forward as you tire during the race. This may have been a specific benefit for him, since he had a tendency to run with a backwards arch in his early career when he tired, although this was more applicable to the 200 meters than the 100, but he still implemented the forward chest lean in the 100. Athletes who can maintain a completely straight back posture when running can benefit from the straight line created through their head and torso all the way down through their standing foot, as their foot is in contact with the ground and they're transferring maximum force directly down. In other words, find which works for you, but it's best to avoid running with your torso leaning backwards. Irrespective of an athlete's torso lean, they should aim to run tall and keep their hips high. In the last video, I mentioned that an athlete's foot should land under their centre of mass, and by this I meant that when they're applying peak force into the ground, it's best for their foot to be under their centre of mass rather than having their leg bent or foot in front. But if we are talking about the very first moment where their foot makes a point of contact with the ground, then this will occur slightly in front of their centre of mass. In the 2007 World Champs final, it was found that the horizontal distance from the toe to the centre of gravity was 31 centimeters for both Tyson Gay and Asafa Powell. Analysis of this race also found that the maximum thigh angle was 70 degrees for Powell and 65 degrees for Tyson, meaning Powell's max knee lift was slightly higher. The maximum leg angle for both sprinters was 35 degrees, which is measured by how far the ankle comes forward in front of the hip and the angle that a line through both creates. In a 1998 study, it was found that faster sprinting velocity wasn't related to maximum thigh and leg angles, but rather to having a larger minimum knee angle, with Tyson having a minimum knee angle of 41 degrees and Powell 38 degrees. This is the angle created when your knee is bent during the leg cycle when your heel is near contact to your glutes. In theory, this would mean that athletes whose knee angles are smaller will be slower, although this certainly doesn't say that the athlete with the biggest knee angle is the fastest, just that the athlete who demonstrates the highest minimum angle is. This is a good example of the importance of efficient backside mechanics and how allowing your knee angle to close too much can cost you time while sprinting and negatively impact your technique as a whole. With your leg cycle being solidified in the middle segment of the race, it's important to also remember to keep your arm swing moving efficiently. It's advised to keep your neck and traps relaxed during the race, particularly from the middle segment onwards, to stop your upper body from tensing up. Since your arms are simply working against the air, you can afford to work your arms with as much force as possible, as opposed to your legs which come into contact with the ground, meaning trying to over-push your legs can negatively impact how your legs propel you forward off the ground. The duration of your leg and arm swings, however, should always remain in sync with each other. With regards to holding closed fists or open hands while running, it's simply down to the individual, with the benefits of the closed fist being that it feels more relaxed and causes less muscle tension, while the open hand allows the athlete to fully feel the length of their arm stroke as it feels more aerodynamic. Like I mentioned in the last video, your stride length should continue to increase as the race progresses, and you won't have to make such a conscious effort to get your strides long as you do in the beginning of the race. Your ground contact time may also reduce as you get closer to top speed, and focusing on applying as much force as you can in the initial stages of the ground contact, but also trying to keep these ground contacts as short and sharp as possible, can serve as a benefit. Ideally, you want to focus on every foot strike being meaningful, while also allowing the elastic recoil of your Achilles tendon to take over once you've applied the force to the ground and your muscles can no longer do any more work in that ground contact. In my next video, I'll be detailing how to execute the 60 to 100 meter segment of the race, so please subscribe and thanks for watching.